Hey there, this is Hannah, Chief Rebel at DeSkills. Imagine your high schooler could learn to harness artificial intelligence to solve real world problems for small businesses and nonprofits. Imagine they could get paid doing these impact projects on the weekends or summer break. And imagine that as a result, they could leave high school with more experience and connections than most college graduates. That's DeSkills. Learn more at deskills.io. That's dskills.io.
This podcast is funded by Ted Dintersmith, the executive producer of the acclaimed film Most Likely to Succeed, and the author of the best-selling book What School Could Be.
Hey everyone, welcome to the What School Could Be podcast. I am your host, Josh Rapoon. Before we start the show, please check out all the resources at whatschoolcouldbe.org and our global online community. If you are a committed education change agent ready to roll up your sleeves and reimagine teaching and learning, simply install the What School Could Be app on your mobile device or navigate to community.whatschoolcouldbe.org. I hope to see you there. Inspired by the Liger Leadership Academy, which, by the way, I featured in a previous episode, Cambodia's Future Foundation, known as the CFF, was created with the ultimate goal of nurturing leaders and changing lives. In 2014, CFF identified and selected a cohort of 10 16-year-old students with 2 years of high school before graduation. CFF recognized that due to financial limitations, these students did not and would not have the funds to attend university after high school. This stark reality affects thousands of young Cambodians destined to drop out of school to work in factories or farms, marry at a young age, or move to a bigger city to find work. CFF students successfully realized their potential and made decisions that positively impacted their lives, the lives of others, their community, and their country. While in high school, CFF students were required to fulfill 4 goals: succeed in their academic classes to pass the highly competitive National University Entrance Test, achieve a high level of English proficiency, develop exceptional technology skills, and design and implement a service project in their community after expert training. After screening hundreds of candidates, a young woman named Sokvy stood out with her bright smile and the grit and perseverance to succeed. I am thrilled that Sokvy is my guest on today's episode. She was selected and would become the first in her family to graduate high school and attend university. Her ambitious CFF service project aimed to provide sanitation facilities to 4 economically disadvantaged families, including a single mother with AIDS and 2 young children. Happily, every CFF student has graduated from a Cambodian university and is gainfully employed. One CFF student is now a high school chemistry teacher. Due to her ambition and motivation, CFF collaborated with the foundation She Can, from whom Sokvy received a full scholarship to the University of Portland in Oregon, where she is now in her senior year. Robert Landau, one of the founders of Cambodia's Future Foundation, wrote the following for today's episode, quote, Sokvy Vin's journey from rural Cambodia to the University of Portland exemplifies the transformative power of investing in human capital, education, and perseverance. I first met Sokvy in 2013 when she was a 16-year-old high school student in Kampong Speu province. Her excellent English and confidence stood out as we launched Cambodia's Future Foundation. Despite challenges, Sokvy exceeded expectations, earning scholarships to a Cambodian university and later to the University of Portland. I've watched her embrace new experiences, from her first international service trip to initiating a basketball project which included building a basketball court along with uniforms and equipment in her hometown. Sokvy's story of grit and paying it forward makes her an inspiring role model, showing that with determination and support, one can overcome challenging circumstances to achieve their dreams, end quote. And now, here is my conversation with Sokvy Win. Sokvy, welcome to the What School Could Be podcast.
Oh, hi. I'm really happy to be here.
So let's start with where you have been over the last couple of years. Here in the summer of 2024, you are doing an internship with the Oregon State Treasury, which is funded by a Robert W. Straub Fellowship. And you shared with me that the work is intense, but very meaningful. So tell me more about what you are doing each day as part of this internship, Sokvy.
Oh, thank you so much for the question. First, I would like to say I feel so grateful to have been accepted in this program. And as an intern, I work with the Treasury Savings Network team. And one project that I'm focusing on right now is on the financial empowerment research project. The goal of this research that I'm working on is to ultimately understand how the team or like our program incentivize the 529 college savings plans and the ABLE savings plan. And as an intern, I work mostly remote. I come to the office 1 to 2 days a week. Yeah, the rest of the time I work from home. And it's really nice. I really love working here. When I go to the office, I participate in the team's meetings. Our team is not too big and not too small. We have around like 10 people in the teams. And yeah, usually I also have like a check-in with my supervisor.
And so do you remember, you must have had to interview for this internship, right? Did you interview for it?
Yes, I interviewed for it when I was back home in Cambodia.
You did the interview over like Zoom or something like that, virtually, right?
Yes, it was on Zoom. And because of the time differences, I had to get up very early for this interview. I got up at like 4 a.m. and the interview was like 5 a.m. in the morning.
And what was that like? It must have been quite a moment to do that interview. You must have been very excited, but a lot of emotions in that moment?
Yes, I was super excited for the opportunity and I really wanted to get accepted, but I felt so nervous actually. And one reason is because English is not my first language, just like my transactional language. So I just found it a little challenging going to an interview and stuff like that. And yeah, especially it was like a panel interview, like a team interview.
I think it's awesome that you're doing this internship, Sokvy. It's just very cool to think of you. You know, this is so intense over the course of the summer of 2024. And then you'll be going back, you'll be starting your senior year come the fall, correct?
Yes, I'm going to start my senior year in the fall 2024.
Yeah.
Which is less than a month, actually.
Yep, that's right, at the University of Portland. That's fantastic. So, Sokvy, you shared with me a list of books that have been influential in your life, including The Alchemist, Stay True, The Seed of the Soul, The Art of Happiness, and The Remarkable Mouse, A Survivor's Tale. So, my goodness, what a great list. I want to focus on Mouse, which is a graphic, cartoon formatted recounting of the Nazi Holocaust. So, in what ways does Cambodia's history and genocide live inside of you, in your mind and in your heart, even though you were not born when the genocide happened?
I think the Cambodian genocide, or sometimes we call it the Khmer Rouge, in many ways live in me. And one ways is the education that I've been given. The genocide destroy almost everything in the country, starting from the economies and in our education. And as you might have heard that, like during the genocide, the people who were like targeted were those who are educated,
Mm-hmm.
and like teachers and like lawyers, and yes, the people in that groups. So when we like come back from the genocide, our education system started from like almost zero because most educated people were killed mostly. So we had to rebuild our educational system, and that has greatly affected me. Sometimes I question like if Cambodia didn't have to go through the genocide, could have been given a better educational like opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And other things I want to mention is how both my parents were genocide survivors,
Mm.
and they lived through their dramas, right?
Right.
So I want to be the one who also get affected to a certain extent by the dramas and witnessed how my parents lived through their dramas as well.
Mm.
And not only my parents, but the people in like in my societies as a whole.
Mm.
There's still a long way for us to go, and there's still a long way for us to heal from that.
Mm. And I imagine, Sokvy, that you, in a way, you carry the Cambodian genocide as sort of a reminder that you're part of the reconstruction process, which will go on and on and on for a long time, right? Like you're part of a much bigger process where a lot of people are bringing Cambodia back and bringing it, forward, if you will, out of that history. And I'm sure that it must feel like a considerable responsibility for you. Is that a fair way to look at it?
I do agree with that. Yeah, I just feel like my generation or like generation before me or generation after me, I think we are bearing that responsibilities of making positive changes to Cambodia in whatever ways that we can.
Yeah, I can imagine it's both a responsibility and also something that inspires you to move forward because you're part of that greater collective of people who are attempting to rebuild the education system and make it modern, and the economic system and all of the infrastructure and all of that. So it's just very interesting to me that you carry that with you and that it's such an important part of who you are. So that's very cool. Okay. So, Sokvy, as I began to study your personal history, it became very clear that your life is a series of firsts, which I think our listeners would love to know more about. So let's talk about them one by one. So here's the first one. You're the first person in your family to go to school, which must have taken so much courage on your part. So tell me about your early life in Cambodia and also your schooling, your early schooling.
So I was born into a family of six in this small town that is 1.5 hours away from Phnom Penh, which is the capital city of Cambodia.
Mm.
And that's where I went to like school my whole life there, like starting from kindergarten to high school. And the first in my family to go to college. I graduated high school in 2017. And after that, I thought that I wanted something more, which was something a little unusual for girls like me in my society to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
I got some support from Cambodia Futures Foundation, and back then I were able to move to Phnom Penh city, Phnom Penh, like that's what some people usually call. I moved there, and then I got enrolled in some English preparation class before applying into a university. there in Cambodia. And I spent my time there at a university in Cambodia for a few years before I took some year gaps and applied and I got into the Shikan program and come to study in the US.
So it would be fair to say that your early education when you were a kid, your K through 12, as we call it, education was very traditional.
Yes, it was very traditional. Yeah. I went to public school.
And so the style of education was more receiving content from a teacher. You know, we all know what that traditional education looks and sounds and feels like. And it sounds like that's what your experience was like. Is that a fair way of looking at it?
Yes, definitely. I remember like growing up going to school in through my entire K to 12. I remember that I was super stressed most of the time because me and my classmate often told by our professors to like summarize the test and like get prepared for the exam.
Yeah.
And I was just like, remember like just try to remember whatever in the text, like even like math formula and stuff like that, which is not really fun.
Yeah.
I wish they had a different way of doing that.
Yeah, that was my experience also. It was just, moving from one test to another and trying to remember, whatever it was that was coming up on the next test, but I certainly didn't retain much of that. So tell me about being in the first Cambodia's Future Foundation Corps. Like, how did that change your life? It sounds like that was quite dramatic.
Yeah, so I met a nonprofit called Cambodia's Futures Foundation when I was in 10th grade. And the nonprofit promised to give us the opportunity to improve our English and learn like technology skill, like learning how to use computers. And they promised to give us the opportunity to learn how to do a community-based project while during the last 2 years of school. And when we're done with high school, they gonna support us to go to college. And being their first cohort, I felt super happy. And I truly would say that the opportunity to have been accepted was a life changing opportunity for me. So there were 5 people from my school have been accepted. And the first time that we were given the opportunity to experience and know what it's like to do a community-based project. And that was something really meaningful to me.
Yeah. Well, actually, we'll talk about that project in a minute after the first break, but it just sounds like all of a sudden something changed in that moment as a result of CFF. And it's remarkable to me, Sokvy, that it happened in your 10th grade year. So then you had 2 more years of high school and you were able to do, so many things in those 2 years, which I think is really, really cool. Because of Cambodia's Future Foundation, you got to travel to Singapore, where a number of firsts happened, including your first passport, your first plane ride, and your first swimming lesson. So tell me more about that trip to Singapore. Like, what was its purpose? And it must have been really, really exciting.
Oh yeah, that was one of the trip that I will never ever forget. So I traveled to Singapore. Back then there was me and one other CFF students and 2 boards member. Yeah, and when we got to Singapore, we got a very warm welcomes by the boards member who lives there in Singapore and the founders of CFF, Robert Landau. And yeah, the purpose of that trip was to go to speak at a fundraising events in a theater there in Singapore.
And so you are the first and only student to pass the She Can requirements, which resulted then in a full ride to an American university. So why did you choose the University of Portland? Like what drew you there?
So as a She Can scholar, I had to choose school from the She Can coalition list. And University of Portland is one of the school in the list among some other schools. And a few reasons that drew me to University of Portland is that UP, University of Portland, offers many programs And like when I were coming to UP, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to major. So I wanted to, yeah, I was debating between going to like just like a business school or a schools that like provides like majors that are more than just business. So I thought that coming to UP would be a good opportunity to like explore. And I
Mm,
also like I mean, we here at UP, we have a small faculties and student ratio,
mm,
which is something that's personally important to me.
mm.
And also learn that University of Portland kind of has a small, like a close knit community. So I felt like coming here might be good for me.
Mm. Wow, it feels like all the pieces came together. A small, close-knit community, a small teacher to student ratio, the Portland community itself, and then you're coming on this full ride that is coming from CFF and SheCan and Sokvy. You have this experience, which we're going to talk about after the break, which was your first CFF project that you worked on. It must have been just so exciting to have all these pieces come together and then to come to Portland and to begin the work, which you're now about to finish because you're headed into your senior year. So you are working on a degree in finance, which is part of your firsts. So why finance? What draws you to this particular area? And what do you hope to do when you graduate?
Just to be honest with you, actually, like I mentioned earlier, when I came to UP, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to major in, and
Hmm.
I was still exploring. And I decided to major in finance because of the broadness of the opportunities that the major can offer when I graduate. And when I graduate, I'm hoping to use my degree to work in some things that I can help to boost the economic development of Cambodia and other places in the world.
Do you have sort of a passion, if you will, about finance, about the way that finance works? How do you feel about finance?
I feel like finance could be a very powerful tools to use to create or ignite a lot of like positive changes that we want to see. And I could see that I can use finance to, I feel like I have the intersection of finance and like educations
Mm,
and raising the living standards of people.
mm,
And I could create like financial empowerment programs or use finance as a tool to advocate for a better or quality education for Cambodians.
mm. I think that's what I love the most, Sokvy, is that your sense of purpose and the idea that you want to go back and help your country, which has been through so much, through war and through genocide, that you want to help your country grow and get better. And that's the reason why I wanted to have you on the show, is because I really, really admire that that's your pathway. But there's a certain kind of practical element to it, which is finance, right? If you're going to be involved in economic development and economics, you have to go through the finance pathway. And I love the fact that you're kind of blending the practical with a passion about your country and about where you come from and your history. So I think that's very cool. And I wonder, just before we go to break, do you feel sometimes like you're carrying a little bit of the weight of your country on your shoulders in that way, if you know what I mean?
Yes, definitely. I feel that a lot of time. I mean, almost all the time, I can say.
Mm,
I mean, it's not easy to be in my generation, but I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing, and I hope that this can make it better for the next generations to come.
yeah, that's awesome. You are going to be a good ancestor. You will be, someday people will look back and say, Sokvy is a good ancestor. She cared deeply about the country and about her work. So I think that that's super awesome. So, hey everyone, we've been talking to Sokvy Win. Stay with us. We will be right back.
Do you believe there's a better way for individuals to learn and fulfill their human potential than in traditional schools? If so, then join me on my two podcasts, The Future of Education and Future You. where we explore these issues and more. My name is Michael Horn, and I've been working to build a better future for all individuals for over 15 years. I'm the co-author of multiple books on the future of learning, including my latest, From Reopen to Reinvent. And you can also stay up to date with all my writing through my Substack newsletter, The Future of Education. Join me as we create the future of learning together.
What does the future of learning look like? All the big changes going on in tech and society these days are raising tough and fascinating questions about education and where it's going. We dig into those questions every week on the EdSurge podcast. I'm Jeff Young, an editor and a reporter at EdSurge, and I sit down with educators, students, and scholars for frank and in-depth conversations about how education is changing. You can find the EdSurge podcast wherever you listen, or just go to edsurge.com and click on the podcast link. I hope you'll check it out.
Hi, I'm Ricardo.
I'm Mary.
And I'm Liz.
And we co-host Course Stories, a podcast produced by the Instructional Design and New Media team at Arizona State University.
In this podcast, we tell an array of course design stories alongside other ASU online designers and faculty.
Join us as we talk to the course design experts about shaping the future of online education. Tune into Course Stories, where innovation meets instruction.
Find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
Course Stories!
Perfection.
Hey everyone, we are back with Sokvy Win, whose history is interwoven with Cambodia's Future Foundation and a remarkable organization called She Can. So Sokvy, you shared with me that almost at no point in your kindergarten through high school experience did you feel like the learning was engaging or connected to the real world. And my experience in school was exactly the same. So you also shared that a sense of purpose arrived on your doorstep during and after a community service project supported by the Cambodia's Future Foundation, CFF, as we've been talking about. So let's dig deeper into this project, which you already mentioned. What is the sanitation project you worked on in Cambodia, and how did this project lead to your leadership of a domestic abuse campaign? So tell us about both of these.
So the sanitation project was the community service project, was the first project I've ever done in my life. And like I mentioned earlier, I met CFF when I was in 10th grade. So back then I worked with a team of 3 people, like the students in my cohort who goes to the same high school as I do. And we were brainstorming the ideas of like what projects do we want to do. And in our teams, we had different ideas of like issues we want to work on. And the sanitation projects was the ideas that I proposed. And first I wanted to say I decided to work on this sanitation projects because I observed that there is a lack of development in terms of like sanitation infrastructure, and I felt that it's important to help my community like build like a healthier lifestyle, and I think health comes first in whatever we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the intention behind the project, and with a team of 3, we worked with communities member in one village in our communities. And we went out there to the communities. We talked to the communities member about our projects, and we asked them about their situations and their needs and how we can work together on this project. And then in 2 years, our teams, we convinced the communities member to invest in parts of the project. So we built toilets for the community's member, and we convinced them to pay half of the price, and the other half were funded by the Cambodia's Futures Foundation. And in 2 years, my team were able to build 10 pit toilets for our community's member. By the time we done with high school, when we finished the project.
Wow, that's so amazing. I mean, we were just before the break, Sophie, we were talking about, economic development and helping your country move forward in a very micro kind of way, in a small area. You had a huge impact. You had a huge impact. I think that's just so remarkable. And that you must have learned so much from that first project. Is that true? Like you really felt like, wow, we really learned a lot and how we had to do this project and who we had to go to get for investment and all of the practical elements of it as well?
Of course. I mean, I felt like I've learned a lot, and I bet my teammates felt that ways too. And for the first time, I felt like, oh, I could do something. I could do something meaningful, and that really made me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just opened doors like of possibility, and like I just like if I were to do like another like projects, even though it's similar or like different, I feel like I think I can do it. That's how I felt.
I'm sure you could. Yes.
Yeah. And then when I applied to be She Can candidates, yeah, we were required to do community-based projects as well. And then I decided to work on the domestic violence project
Hmm.
because yeah, the domestic violence awareness projects were something that kind of stay close to my heart as well. Because like growing up in Cambodia, I witnessed domestic violence in my communities. And the problem is that in our culture, we view domestic violence very narrowly. Only physical abuse considered as abuse because the injuries appears on the body,
Ah.
but but not like economics, sexual or emotional abuse.
Hmm.
So I decided to create like a workshop for 28 high school students, and yeah, I created surveys, lesson plans, and like a discussion for the 28 students. And I mean, before the workshop, none of the students knew about emotional abuse.
Hmm.
And after the workshops, they kind of better understand all kind of abuse, which was something important to me. So I was really happy to have done all this project, and yeah, thankful so much to the opportunities that I was given from CFF,
Yeah.
which made me feel that I could do any kind of projects that I want to contribute back to my community.
Yep. And we have more projects to talk about, but I just want to, impress on our listeners, Sokvy, that what we're talking about is that your life would have been different had these kinds of project opportunities been available all the way through elementary and middle and high school. That for you, it didn't happen until the very end of the K-12 experience. But we at What School Could Be care deeply about the idea that student-driven learning and real-world challenges and project-based learning, problem-based learning happens all the way along. And it's not something that just gets tacked on at the end. So anyway, okay, so you shared with me your thoughts about what makes you a good hire by any company or nonprofit or organization. And you said your top skills are empathy and project management, which is an awesome combination. So let's talk about how these two skills and any other skills that you want to talk about have helped you succeed in two different projects. So what is your basketball project? And how did you go about using empathy to find out what the community wanted and needed?
So this summer, I had the opportunity to create a basketball project. What I basically did was to create a basketball court at a primary school back home in Cambodia. A primary school that located in like a rural area of Cambodia that is around 1.5 hours away from Phnom Penh. I did not only build a basketball court, but also provided basketball trainings and programs to the school. I mean, I came to create this project from like looking back to my experience going to school as a kid. So the school that I'm doing the project at, the basketball project at, It's the school that I went to during my kindergarten and primary school.
Ah, okay.
And yeah, it's a school that I went to, and like, I mean, it's just been like a long time since I left the school. But I mean, back then, the only sports that they had at the school was soccer.
Hmm.
That's it. No tennis or badminton or like basketball or
Yeah.
stuff. And like coming here to school in the US, I am inspired by how much Americans love sport.
Yep.
And I saw basketball. I mean, it's one of their popular sport and also something that I personally like because I think that similar to other kind of sport, I mean, basketball is crucial to a child development in terms of like building emotional and social skill.
Hmm.
And this was something that I didn't have the privilege or the opportunity to do when I was going to school as a kid. And I felt like I missed out, like as an
Mm.
adult. And I was just like, I wish I had that. And this is the reasons that I decided to do this basketball project because I think that school is a lot more important than just summarize like the textbook and like just do the math calculation and like being like or making like kids stress all the time. I think it's really important that they have a combination of skills that could prepare them to, I don't know, when you're done with school, you know how to live peacefully with the people around you.
Yeah. And to thrive and have a good life and to, as you mentioned, have that good social and emotional development and physical development. I think this project is so inspiring, Sophie. I love everything about it. It was so unexpected to hear that you were working on a basketball project. I didn't realize, when I found out about that, I was like, wow, that's like super interesting. Okay, so there's one other project that we want to talk about. So, what is your work in the University of Portland Student Campus Connect office? Like, how did you go about using empathy and project management skills to create a sense of belonging for students? What is that work about?
When I came to UP, my first impressions about the international student community was that it's a little small. And I just felt like I wish we had a bigger international students community. I think that would make it a lot easier for international students to find people that they can relate to in terms of their experience and the situations that they are in.
Hmm.
And so when I was in my junior year at UP, I worked as an international students campus connector. And in my role, I work directly with the international student services. And the reason that I wanted to work in that role was because I personally understood how hard it is as an international student to come here to study abroad and so far away from home and family. And like through my experience in my freshman year and my sophomore year, I understood or I realized how important it is to have a sense of like communities and where you feel belonged.
Hmm.
And I found that within the international student communities at my school. And I was grateful and I wanted to give that back to the next generation of international students. Yes, so this is the reason that I decided to work there. And in my role, I promote existing programs at schools to students to have them be aware of what's going on in school.
Hmm.
And I also create my own programs and events for internationals and domestic students to come together. So one event that I did was to organize African Film Fest,
Hmm.
and the meetup happened at another school actually, but I promote the films to the students at my school, both domestic and internationals, and then I also contacted the international students at other school about the meetup, and then yeah, we just went to that school to saw an Africans movie and then
Hmm.
talked and get to know each other and connect.
I love that example. I think it's such a cool thing to, put on a film festival. Sokvy, I think film festivals and meetups that happen associated with it are just great examples of where people feel both a sense of belonging and a sense of community, but also they learn something that's far outside of what they normally know. So I just think that that's a great example. And if we go back and look at the sanitation project and the domestic abuse campaign, and we look at your basketball project and the work that you did at the Student Campus Connect office and are doing, what really jumps out at me is that you just have this kind of relentless view of building community. And I find that very admirable. And I love the fact that, all of this is sort of, as you finish your senior year, as you head back to Cambodia to do economic development, all of these experiences are going to be part of that. And that's just a very, very cool thing. So, hey, everyone, we have been talking with Sokvy Win. Stay with us and we'll be right back.
Hey there. Are you interested in hearing weekly conversations with authors, leaders, and practitioners at the forefront of learning and education innovation? Then you'll love the Getting Smart podcast. This podcast amplifies the incredible work being done by some of the most innovative minds in education. Learn new leadership styles, new technologies, new frameworks and mindsets, and get the fuel you need to stay motivated and curious. Together, we can empower all learners to thrive. It's available at gettingsmart.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, friends. This is Toy Hirschman from EntreEd. It is my great honor to uplift this excellent podcast, What School Could Be. As always, we are super excited to support innovation in education. We've been lucky enough to feature some of the incredible What School Could Be educators on our podcast. If you are looking to be inspired by entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial educators and other great minds from across the world, check out the EntreEd Talk podcast, and please like and subscribe and leave a review. Thanks for tuning in.
Are you ready to shake things up in the classroom? Then get ready to blast off into the future of education with the Teacher Nerds podcast. Join Joe DiPaolo and Ron Nober as they share their own experiences, as well as talk with guests who are experts and innovators in education. From engaging teaching techniques to the latest educational technology, this podcast is a must-listen for anyone passionate about the future of learning. Subscribe and get ready to learn with the Teacher Nerds podcast.
Hey everyone, we are back with the awesome and amazing University of Portland student Sokvy Win. So let's look into the future and imagine you have graduated from the University of Portland with an undergraduate degree and you hypothetically went on to earn a master's and a PhD in finance. And you shared that you are not sure you have found your purpose in life yet. But for now, you know that you are happiest when you are doing things that bring positive impacts to the world and the people around you. So it sounds like you actually are planning to return to Cambodia. And are you thinking about how you can be both happy and making a difference in the world while working in the world of finance? I know that's a complicated question, and I think to a certain extent, Sokvy, you've sort of touched on this, but I just wonder about, the balance between a happy and thriving life and also that making a difference, which sometimes can feel like a lot of responsibility. And on top of that, you're working in finance and community building, economic development. Oof, boy, those are all big things. So I wonder what you think about all that.
Definitely, I agree with what you just mentioned. I will go back home to Cambodia, and being happy and making a difference while working in the world of finance is something I've been thinking about a lot. And I think it's something that I can do. And although it's not pretty clear to me yet what it's going to look like, but I see there's many ways that I can go with it. And I mean, like you mentioned, like giving back to community can feel like a little like too much sometimes. But I'm planning to integrate the work that I'll be doing with some things that I'm passionate about, like education and improving the standard of living of the Cambodians people.
I love that you're combining the elevation of the standard of living of Cambodia's and education. Like you're purposefully tying that together. Is that kind of a fair way of looking at it, Sokvy, that you understand that economic development and education go hand in hand?
I totally agree with that. Yes, I think we need to have economics development first so that we can create like education systems, or at least, I mean, after economics development, we can have enough resources to create education programs that kids really needs.
Yeah.
So definitely they go hands in hands.
Yeah. And I also take us back to the very beginning, Sophie, where you talked about how the Cambodian genocide, saw the loss, the death of so many people who were educated, and that it can take, 100 years maybe or more to be able to rebuild after something like that. And you understand that and you carry that with you. You understand your country's history. And yet at the same time, you also want to be happy in the work that you do, right?
Yeah.
So, that's really a balance that you're going to be looking to achieve as you finish your senior year and decide what happens next, like grad school or heading back to Cambodia or whatever that path happens to be, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, getting a degree is in finance, not only just like finance and making money, but I also, hopes that I can contribute back to Cambodia in whatever ways that I can. And yes, I mean, looking at our recent history, like people in my generations, if I'm not doing that, who's gonna do that?
Oh, yeah, there you go. If not you, who? If not when? Why not now, right? That's very cool. So, Sokvy, we're gonna take a real left turn here and talk about something completely different. You noted to me that you think that artificial intelligence, or AI, is a tool all students and teachers need to understand and use. So, how are you using AI as a college student at the University of Portland?
Well, I would say sometimes I'm thankful for the creation of AI. Like sometimes I found AIs to be helpful. As someone whose English being my like transactional language,
Hmm.
I found AI to be helpful in terms of like helping with my language barrier. I use AI to sometimes help me summarize a very long text that I just don't have much time to read, and I just wanna like have like a quick understanding of what it's about. And I only do that when the reading is not required, though. I mean, when the reading is not that important, but just want to get a sense of what the reading is. Yes, and I sometimes use AIs to help correct my grammars, and I found that helpful. I'm grateful for that. But I actually don't like really trust AI all the time. I mean, sometimes I don't like the suggestion that AIs give me because it's
Right.
like too much machine.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
like, well, I want to make it a little more human. So I mean, I don't like entirely like rely on AIs.
Hmm. Yeah, what happened to me yesterday, I had somebody gave me a report, a very, very long report, and I needed to send an email related to it. And I'm like, I don't have time to read this report. So I converted it to a PDF. I uploaded it into Perplexity, and it delivered a short summary for me. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I understand what this report is about. And I was able to write that email. So that's like super interesting. Are you concerned, Sophie, that AI may diminish humans' creativity and imagination? I know you shared that thought with me before today. I wonder what you're thinking about that.
Yes, I would say that I am concerned that AI would diminish human creativity and imagination if, I mean, especially students and especially kids use the tools inappropriately or use it too much and without guidance and restriction on that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see AI as both helpful and dangerous at the same time.
Yeah.
So I would just say that we need to be careful on that in terms of like how we use it.
hmm Would it be fair to say that your fellow college students at the University of Portland are talking about AI a lot, or are they not talking about it very much? What's happening on your campus? How much are your fellow students talking about AI?
Oh, well, I felt like this is a hot topic right now. I mean,
Hmm.
at my school as well. I mean, does the students talk about AI a lot and how they use AI to help them with homeworks and stuff like that? I mean,
hmm
we as a student use AI in different ways to meet our individual needs.
Yeah.
From the conversation with some of my friends, that they share with me that, oh, I use AI to help with my resume, to tailor my resume,
Hmm.
job
Wow.
descriptions and stuff like that. I think that is cool.
Yep.
But I also knew that there was some student use it like inappropriately to, I don't know, writing essays and stuff like that, which is not how it's supposed to be.
hmm
And one good thing is that there is a concern around that tools in general, it's not like specifically to any student or like something like serious happen at school, but the school is like raising awareness around that. And it is
Hmm.
something that teachers brought up in school and told us not to take anything. I mean, if you take anything from AI, say it that is from AI.
Yeah, it's very interesting right now. And it sounds to me like a lot of the conversations that are happening on your campus have to do with your peers, your fellow students are sharing techniques with each other for how to use it, best practices, actual skills in using AI, which is, just really, it's a really interesting moment. So thank you for sharing your thoughts about AI. Okay, so we have a couple more questions before we close this wonderful conversation. Sokvy, a genie in a bottle has granted you 3 wishes. Anything you want, anything in the world. What are these 3 wishes and why are they so important to you?
Well, I would wish there is no war and people can live a long life and everybody have a good standard of living.
hmm
I mean, it just breaks my heart to see what has been happening in Israel and Gaza. I
Yes.
just feel like this is something that shouldn't be happening at all in our generations. And I just felt like more than ever, we need to like educate kids and like student how can you can come out of school and learn how to live peacefully with one another.
Yeah.
And my second wish I mentioned was to live a long life. This is something that's kind of unique to me actually, because I'm from Cambodia, and I don't know if you know that Cambodian people have a short lifespan
Hmm.
compared to, I mean, at least compared to Americans.
I did not know that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just felt like I wish that everybody could live a long life that they wish to and enjoy it. Just
Hmm.
felt like that's important. And also their standard of living. I want everyone in the world to have a good standard of living that they deserve, no matter who they are and where they are from. And I just feel like this is basic needs, and we as humans, we want that. And I just feel like it's important that we can support one another to achieve that.
Yeah. I just think it's marvelous, Sokvy, that, you tie these together. Your country has a long history of war. And as we talked about earlier, that for many people, that's a hard burden to carry. And the culture and the people were impacted very heavily. And so the way that I read your desire, your wish, if you will, granted by the genie, to live a long life and also that your fellow Cambodians get to live long lives is tied to how much you care about your country and how much work you want to do to make your country a better place and to raise universal standards of living. I think the way that you tie these together is really beautiful, frankly, and that how lucky for Cambodia to have you, how blessed we are that CFF and She Can recognized you and who you are and what you care about. And that these two organizations have given you opportunities now, and you're moving along that pathway at University of Portland, but you fully intend to live a long life. You're going to work for no war, and you're going to work very hard to raise universal standards of living very much through education. I just love the way that that's all tied together for you. And I think it's the coolest thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So, Sokvy, I love to end episodes, interviews, by having guests talk about the giants upon whose shoulders they stand. Because you are still in college, I'm going to ask you this question a bit differently. So rather than name a person or persons, I wonder if you can share the specific qualities you look for in a coach, an advisor, a mentor, a guide. For example, more than any other quality I need and want my coaches to be, to have in abundance is to be very patient with me. So what do you need and want from your coaches and guides and advisors and mentors?
Thank you so much for the questions. For me, I want my mentors or advisor coaches to have the ability to relate to my experience and connect with me, because mentees and mentors oftentimes come from different places. And I think like the role of mentor as an advisor is to support the mentee, right?
Yeah.
But for making the mentee feel supported, personally, I think it's very crucial, like how mentors could relate to the mentee's experience. And from there, mentees could feel that they understood and supported. That's one things that I'm looking for in mentors and advisor. And another point I'm looking for is the ability to give good feedback. It's all about, right? So I love it when my mentors be honest with me and give me the feedbacks that I need to grow.
Wow, that's like super valuable, the ability to, you want people to hear you. You want people to really understand who you are and where you're coming from. You want to connect with them. You want relationship with your coaches and guides and mentors. And you also want them to really support you and to provide feedback. That's the best kind of support, is feedback, right? Is that a fair way of looking at it?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so today, the interview that we're doing today, you're actually not in Oregon or in Portland right now. You're actually in San Francisco. And you've made this trip here in the summer of 2024 because you're actually meeting with some of your coaches and mentors. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I'm meeting all my 4 mentors. It has been really nice. Super grateful for this support system.
Wow, it must be so exciting for both you and for them to be able to meet and to kind of review where you are right now. Is that actually what's happening? Is it this is sort of an update on where your life is at in these conversations with your coaches and mentors?
Yes, part of it's definitely. So you know what? August 6th gonna be like a 3-year anniversary of when I landed in the US. Yeah, so it's like I talked with my mentor the other day that it's can't believe it's been so fast, like 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and these opportunities for us to catch up and go through what's been happening, and like things has changed a lot in the past 3 years. Yeah, I just came here the other day and didn't know what I was doing. I just like get so overwhelmed, like being here so far away from home. But like looking back 3 years later, things has changed so much, and we're all happy about that, and the relationship that we build and the experience that we go through together.
That's awesome. And here we are having you on the What School Could Be podcast at this kind of celebration moment. And as you get ready just a month from now, right, to head into your senior year.
Yes.
And that's just great. And so I tell you what, we'll dedicate this episode, Sokvy, to your mentors, your guides, your coaches, your advisors. We thank them. They are a blessed part of your life. And also, we are blessed, Sokvy, to have you out there doing what you're doing. Really, really appreciate your work, very inspired by your work. So thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for sharing all your thoughts. And we wish you the absolute best of luck as you begin your senior year.
Yes, thank you as well for having me today.
Our editor, creative consultant, and sound engineer is the talented Evan Kurohara. Our theme music is created by a remarkable pianist, Michael Sloan. Producer of 12 albums with over 100 songs, Michael Sloan is featured in Apple Music, Spotify, and all major music platforms. You can also find his work on his YouTube channel. Michael has listeners in over 100 countries and 2,000 cities. We'd be grateful if you would support these episodes with leading edge, innovative and imaginative educators and students by giving us your own rating and writing a review wherever you get your podcasts. This series is sponsored by Education Change Agent, Ted Dintersmith, executive producer of the award-winning documentary film, Most Likely to Succeed, and author of the best-selling book, What School Could Be. If you are committed to rolling up your sleeves and joining thousands of educators, business professionals, nonprofit leaders, and parents as we reimagine education to be relevant and learner-centered, please join the What School Could Be global online community. Simply log in to community.whatschoolcouldbe.org or download the What School Could Be app from your favorite app store. The What School Could Be podcast is brought to you by Josh Rapoon Productions. Send your feedback to josh@whatschoolcouldbe.org. Follow the show on Twitter @WSCB Podcast and on LinkedIn @Josh Rapoon. Listeners, one of the most important things we all can do is to bring kindness and compassion into the world. For sure, we need a surplus of both right now. Until next time, ahui ho, and thank you for listening to the What School Could Be podcast.